Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the Nerdy Occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone. And in case I forgot to mention it, I went away for most of the weekend. So if you guys, if any of y'all sent me anything, particularly GT, because I did see he sent me something in the 5 minutes where I actually checked my phone. I was away all weekend, and that is why I didn't respond to anything. I wasn't ignoring you or blowing you off. I was just busy doing stuff with the Society for Creative Anachronism. And it was fun. I had to self-censor a lot because a lot of the people in the SCA are much more left, and in particular, mainstream establishment left than I am, and it resulted in me having to bite my tongue almost to the point of injuring myself. But I'm better now, which means I get to rant as much as I like about the stupid things that the internet did this week. Segue, but I'm tish.
Alright, sorry, it's just loading right now, though. Hang on a sec. My week has been relatively uneventful. Weekend, I should say. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. Okay, just present screen. So this is originally from the Atlantic.com. All we wanted to do was play video games. Written by Spencer Kornhaber, published April 25th, 2025. Anything said on there?
No, get to the subtitle, because that's where it gets good.
Streamers such as Zach Asmongold Hoyt have more influence than ever. What are they really saying?
In short, you had it right. I get the feeling you included that in order to be sardonic and sarcastic, but unironically, you fuck with the okay, this is the thing about social justice, right? This is the thing that and neo-Hegelianism in general, right? That absolutely breaks my brain. Every empire in human history has understood that the people will put up with just about any level of depravity so long as they have sufficient bread and or circuses. But social justice and neo-Hegelianism more broadly is the one ideology. Well, I can't say it's the one ideology because the hyper-traditionalist tradcons did it too. But the set of people who are pathologically incapable of leaving the bread and circuses alone for their own benefit are fantastically frustrating, but also fascinating in the sense of they would probably be able to win more effectively if they just could restrain themselves from fucking with the things that make life worth living. But they literally cannot, and that is why they fail so ungodly spectacularly. It doesn't matter if it's tradcons clutching their pearls about rock and roll and metal and heavy metal, or if it's Anita Sarkeesian and company whining and bitching and complaining about Mario. if you go after people's bread and circuses, if you go after the things that make their life tolerable, no matter what the totalitarian government is doing to them, you will inevitably fuck yourself to death, because that is the one move that no one likes. Don't shove your authoritarian morality into the things I use to make life worth living in contravention of your moralistic ideology. But certain sets of people cannot bring themselves to leave the bread and circuses the ever-loving fuck alone. And that is why they fail, which is good for us. So I guess I shouldn't be complaining. As Wellington said, never interrupt your enemy when they're... Or, no, it was Napoleon. As Napoleon once is alleged to have said, although frankly it sounds more like the Duke of Wellington to me, never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. Moving on.
When Representative Al Green of Texas started shouting and waving his cane around during Donald Trump's address to Congress last month, punists described the Democrat as causing a disruption, pulling us down, or peacefully protesting. In the wilds of online alternative media, both another term was being used. What is it? Molding?
I've never heard of that, but okay, fair enough.
Mauled is a blend of mad and bald. It's video gamer slang for getting so angry after suffering a loss that you pull your hair out.
Okay, that I did not know, but it is good. It is good to know. Hooray! And to be fair, I think I have been mauled before. And I have done a lot of mauling before. It's one of the reasons my hair is cut, because sometimes when I would scrunch my hair angrily, bits of it would break off and I had to cut it to keep it from doing that. Anyway, moving on.
I learned the word by watching Twitch, the streaming platform that is famous for turning video games into a spectator sport, and that has, of late, become an important forum for political commentary.
Not to be a I was ancient when your cities were being founded fag or anything, but video games have been a spectator sport for a jolly long time now, folks. The Let's Play and even what was the it came back a few years ago and then it promptly died because of what Frost said. Fucking I don't remember the name of the company I'm thinking of. But yeah, even before Let's Plays became commonplace because of the existence of YouTube, there were other formats in which video game spectator sport was not uncommon. Not to mention the world of esports itself, which very much by definition is video games as spectator sport. Anyhow, moving on.
Alright. One of the most popular Twitch streamers right now is expert named Asmongold.
Your mic is roboting, Brainstormer, really badly.
Hear me now?
It's a little better, but it's still kind of glitchy.
Can't do anything about it.
Fuck. I hope it's on my end.
One who goes by the name Asmongold, and primarily streams under the handle ZachRar. On the day after Trump's congressional address, Asmongold kicked off his stream by telling his viewers he was excited to finish playing the new game Monster Hunter Wilds and to sort through the fallout from Trump's speech.
You do realize a person can do both of those things simultaneously, and it's not some sort of indictment on society or anything. Because I get the feeling that this article is going to be the mainstream media being horrified by non-mainstream media, especially given that non-mainstream media is several orders of magnitude more popular than mainstream media at this point, because mainstream media and the journalism degrees upon which they are founded, respectively, are not worth the paper, ink, or airtime that they are printed upon. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Alright, I pulled up a TV news interview in which Green explained that he'd interrupted the president to object to potential Medicaid cuts. Asmongold offered his view interrupting Trump was tantamount to molding out, which makes people think you're a fucking R word to describe someone of
someone who is making a mockery of their own intellectual faculties, to put it bluntly.
Asmongold, whose real name is Zach Hoyt, is a prominent member of a class of influencers that had been helping remake the American electorate. With an average of more than 2.1 million people tuning in to Twitch at any given moment, the clips of the top streamers regularly going mega viral on the wider internet. The platform is, as journalist Nathan Grayson points out in the new book Stream Big, comparable in reach to mainstream television networks like CNN and Fox during primetime slots at major events. And that's without counting other streaming venues such as Kick and YouTube.
People trust Twitch and YouTube more than they trust Fox, NBC, or CNN, because Fox, NBC, and CNN are out-of-touch hacks who are still acting as though it's still 1990. When in actuality, we are sitting in the year of our Lord 2025, and they don't see. Okay. I'm gonna do a little bit of a sidebar here, but this is a perfect microcosm of the whole issue. Everyone looks positively on. Well, everyone who doesn't, irrationally hate and fear Trump for stupid reasons considers it to be a good thing that Trump has appointed the new media seat in his press briefing room. But I look at that and say it doesn't go far enough. The way I would do it is I would pick a metric, whether it be views, whether it be airtime, whether it be reach, whether it be like people's reactions to them or something, but pick a verifiable metric. Pick a numerical metric, and then say that anyone who reaches this viewership or this engagement or this reach threshold gets a seat. But here's the thing. If you did that right now, as I am speaking, if you did that based on viewership or numbers, then the truth of the matter is that people like Tim Pool, people like Asmongold, people like Nextaku, they would have more seats in the press briefing room than the mainstream media, than the three-letter news media hacks. But you know what? I would look at that and I would say good, because the mainstream media gets treated with an undue amount of seriousness. Meanwhile, the people who have a far better and greater and more engaging reach and more reflection of what people actually think on the ground get 1 seat. We have to act as though it's not a complete farce that someone who can't manage to get 1 million views seriously on most days somehow is more legitimate than someone who gets hundreds of millions of views on every segment they do. And I'm sick of coddling the boomer gerontocracy and the establishment here. If you don't get the views, that means you don't reflect the views of people. And if you don't reflect the views of the people, you are shit journalists, because that is the purpose that journalists are supposed to fucking function as in a press briefing room. They're supposed to ask questions that people actually want answers to, and then relay those answers to the people who they represent. And the mainstream media is shit at that for 100 different reasons. But first and foremost is simply this: they cannot be in touch with the actual people because they shun and shame and ostracize any actual people who don't meet establishment decorum. Well, fuck your establishment decorum. It's 2025, and this should have happened 30 years ago. Fuck off. Moving on.
So you really need to get a lot of it stuff out.
I'm sorry. Like I said, I've been subtly and politely as I can self-censoring myself for a week, and I can't fucking. I need to rant sometimes. It is fundamental to my nature, and I can only hold it in for so long before I need to explode for a bit. Moving on.
Alright, Drencher, good to see you. I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, DT.
How are you? Alright.
I assume he's going to go backwards and catch up like he usually does, in which case he shall see what I said earlier about me being out of town for the weekend. So that is why I didn't respond to anything you sent me, DT. It's because I was out of town all weekend.
Alright. So the last sentence before you interrupted me, Dawn, was during last year's campaign, the Trump camp courted the streamer Adin Ross in order to reach a young, largely male constituency that ended up helping decide the election.
Yes, because the people, like Joe Rogan, like Tim Pool, like Asmongold, like Noxtaku, are more reflective of what people on the ground actually think, and who speak with and for their respective viewer bases very often and in an honest way. Or at the very least, they say things that large sums of people consider valid enough to engage with and view frequently, which is more than the mainstream media has been able to do since 2013 or so. And frankly, the establishment should have gotten its shit kicked in 30 years ago, but they somehow managed to triangulate it so that the grift could keep going for another 30 years. And now they're bitching and moaning that the end of the establishment has come and become inevitable. If you had done this 30 years ago, when the Gen Xers were the ones doing the irreverence thing, we could have been spared the entire farce that is the early 21st century. But because you tried to backbite and backdeal and hold like vices onto the reins of power, now you didn't want to be beaten fairly on serious terms. So now you're going to get BTFO'd by clouds over and over and over again. And I'm just going to sit here with popcorn and enjoy myself while it happens. Moving on.
All right. Trump's second administration has made it even clearer how the culture of gaming, pastime enjoyed weekly by 61% of adults, age 36 on average, is bleeding into American politics. The avowed Diablo 4 player, Elon Musk, explains Doge's activities with gaming terms such as speedrunning, beating a game way more quickly than its creators intended, or slashing government at a faster rate than previously seemed possible. Musk recently beefed with Hassan Piker, a popular leftist Twitch streamer who has been enlisted by Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to help rally opposition to Trump. He has also publicly feuded with Asmongold after Asmongold criticized Musk for exaggerating his own gaming accomplishments, which is kind of. Hold on.
It's a minor snafu, all things considered, but he did in fact do it. Yeah.
Right. Which is kind of like the 2020s equivalent to a politician fudging their golf handicap or Warzone experience. What?
No, I think that's a pretty fair analogy, all things considered. The sentence refers to faking your gaming history as being equivalent to knocking strokes off your golf game or doing stolen valor, which is fair. But here's the thing. Let me summarize pretty much everything that you just said there in terms that, people who haven't been hog-fucked by the Overton window can understand. What you have just described there, in as much fear-mongering terms as you could possibly manage, is the non-mainstream media being more reflective of what people actually want and more in touch with what people actually want than the mainstream media is. I have said it before, I shall say it again. You didn't want a dignified death via the Gen Xers in the 90s. So now, establishment, Overton window, the aforementioned Overton window is going to be smashed by clowns dressed in tutus, for all you know. And you know what? As much as I think we would be better off if you had just let the Gen Xers do what they wanted to do in the 90s, and we would have been better off if you had just bitten the bullet in the 90s when the Gen Xers wanted to take over. I am at least grateful that I get to live in a world where instead of death by equal onslaught on a battlefield, you have chosen death by 1,000 lulls. Because as much as it pains me that the world is beholden to death by 1,000 lulls, I have grown so much spite over the Overton window not moving when it should have, and the establishment not stepping the fuck aside when it should have, that I'm at this point, I'm just going to borrow a phrase from Knox. If you put on the clown makeup, I am going to laugh at you. That is just how that works. And despite or indeed because of your establishment aristocratic decorum derp, not even in spite of your establishment decorum, but partly because of your establishment decorum, you have made yourselves a bunch of childish caricatures, and you can't even bring yourselves to admit that you are childish caricatures because you have to rather farcically insist on this veneer of seriousness, even though literally every sign points to the contrary. God damn it! But moving on.
The power word, real name spell, a vital tool in the smear merchant's arsenal.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point. I should have brought that up earlier, but they always love whenever they do these hit pieces on internet personalities. They always like to poo-poo their gaming tag or their persona by using their real name, as though that somehow takes legitimacy away from them or gives the journalist doing it more legitimacy, which just goes to show what I was saying earlier. You are so fucked to death on the smell of your own establishment decorum that you don't even conceive of how little people regard that kind of, frankly, boomer politicking anymore. Like, I am an old soul. Like, My idea of politicking involves the laws of hospitality and guest and host rights, God damn it. But even I'm sitting there going, my God, they don't realize how much they've like. You act as though you are even still fighting, and that's the problem. You guys, the fight you should have had, the fight that would have actually been on semi-equal terms, would have been the fight in the 90s with the Gen Xers. But y'all stole the futures of the Gen Xers by hook or by crook and forced them into establishment conformity by hook or by crook. And so now it's not going to be the Gen Xers that come for your ass. It's going to be the Gen Alpha kids. And the Gen Alpha kids, having been raised in the shadow of the citadel of the gerontocracy and the post-war consensus, are now just going to burn it to the ground and not even give you the dignity of a fight to the death. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Alright, man's way. Okay. I've been dipping in and out of Asmongold's channel for the past month to understand what it means for politics to be processed through the lens of video games. After all, how a society amuses itself tends to affect how it governs itself. The rise of TV, the media theorist Neil Postman famously argued, remade politics into visual entertainment ruled by optics. Professional sports, it's often said, primes people to view elections as a contest between rivals. The internet has inflated the importance of identity and authenticity, inviting campaigners to act like just another face in the social media scroll.
In other words, they
hold on.
Go ahead. Finish. Yeah.
Right, yeah, it's just one more sentence. Gaming seems to be intensifying the effects of those three media and adding in something else. Cynicism.
Okay, but here's the thing. Again, no matter how much fear-mongering decorum you want to throw over it, I'm going to do the Glinda routine for you because, god damn it, it's applicable. You have no power here. Any relevance that the establishment had, any relevance that the post-war consensus had, died 30 years ago and has basically just been lurching around on its own corpse at least since about 2016. And this is from the perspective of someone who actually, lives life on the ground and actually keeps his finger on the pulse of what people actually watch and what people actually want. This is the equivalent of the "they don't know they're dead" beam. That is literally this. You act as though you are fighting on even terms with the likes of Asmongold and Tim Pool and Joe Rogan and so forth. But the thing of it is, your opinion doesn't even matter anymore. Your opinion is basically a footnote, which frankly only exists insofar as it is hilarious to mock, to meme, to belittle, and to berate it. Which, I mean, to be fair, gives us content, so, I can't knock you for it, but this is the thing. This is the problem with the MSM and the establishment and the gerontocracy and the post-war consensus altogether. You are acting as though you are still the adults in the room, TM, passing judgment on this little irrelevant thing that the kids do. But the thing is, the kids, the thing you think is so bizarre and out there and weird is quite literally the new normal, and your little aristocratic poo-pooing of it is, again, a footnote that is best used to mock or to belittle or to berate, not a authoritative opinion that anyone takes seriously. This is the problem with the establishment altogether. You cannot conceive of a world in which your authority does not exist. or that your authority is so isolated that it might as well not exist. But that is precisely the world in which you are finding yourself. And by the time you realize just how early you lost this game, the Overton window will have shifted again. But by the time you come to terms with, frankly, the dub position from 10 to 12 years ago, the Gamergate were the good guys all along position, nobody will even remember the thing that you're saying because the Overton window will have shifted again. But I am like, this is the thing. I am morbidly curious how long it's going to take them to get to the, Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn and Brianna Wu were the bad guys of Gamergate, and Gamergate were on the right side all along. I wonder how long and how many iterations of Academic Wu it's going to take them to finally get there. Because we're 12 years on, and you still haven't gotten to level 1 in this particular game. So no wonder you don't realize you've lost yet. It took you 10 years to get this far, and you're not even getting it right in the first place. Moving on.
Asmongold's hair is scraggly and brown. His build is stringy. His eyebrows are given to vigorous wiggling. He likes to brag about not showering for months. Okay, so I'm gonna be fully honest. I don't really watch this guy. I've seen like stills, like thumbnails of like stuff of him, but I've never. Yeah, it's never.
I usually don't watch his stuff. I watch other people reacting to his stuff. So I know more about him probably than you, but even I still look at him and I go, "Oh hey, it's Moist Meter's brother." Or yeah, it's Penguin Zero's brother. Cuz I swear to God, listen to their voices, look at their faces, and tell me that Charlie and Asmongold don't look exactly the fucking same. I swear to fucking God. They look and sound very similar to each other, God damn it. But anyway, moving on.
Alright. I brag about not showering for months. Most of his streams start with him taking questions from his viewers, who provide a continuous river of comments in his Twitch chat room. Topics might include what he ate last night, possibly Taco Cabana, what he thinks of puzzle games, not a fan. The reason why is I don't want to think, and whether he's ever going to stream from the White House. We'll see what happens. He then starts browsing. Hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah.
He then starts browsing the internet, sharing his screen with viewers while clicking among memes and news clips shared on Reddit and X. He'll watch speeches and news segments in full, pausing every so often to add an uh-oh or let's go, or a bit longer bit of analysis. Okay, that's...
Yeah, what you were describing is him being a real person, and God forbid, him being humble and self-aware about the fact that he's only just a dude. This is the thing. Someone like Asmongold is popular in part because he is aware that he isn't the master of all decorum. And that's precisely what makes the mainstream media such a farce. Because no matter how many times people tell you the obvious truth, no matter how many organic people will tell you that the mainstream media is basically all but useless anymore, you don't act as though you are people who are even capable of losing, and you don't act like people who expect themselves to be judged. You only ever realize how thoroughly you fucked up in terms of how much authority you have to judge everything else. And that's why it's so farcical, because you act as though you're the adults in the room, TM, not realizing that pompous, stuck-up, bitchy attitude you have is precisely what makes you unwatchable and unserious and impossible to take seriously. Ah, God damn it. Moving on.
Alright. Before I started tuning in to Twitch, keeping it on the background while sending emails or cleaning the house, I wondered whether its practitioners were just updated versions of old media archetypes, such as the talk radio host, football commentator, and news anchor. But Asmongold is less energetic and polished than those kinds of professionals. The feelings one gets is not of watching him, but of watching with him. I sometimes felt a pang of nostalgia for middle school hangouts with friends. A specific form of communication arises from a group of guys staring at the same screen. More nonsense back and forth in a knowingly Neanderthal manner. It's bracketed in irony, baseless in thinking than reacting. He's playing the role of a buddy on the couch.
Okay. Ding, ding, ding. That is probably the closest thing to the truth a mainstream media hack has come to in the last 12 years. Finally, we're beginning to approach what I would consider to be level 1. We're still not there, mind you. We still haven't actually engaged in what I would call level 1, but we are at least approaching the vicinity of level 1. Yes, welcome to the live feed, DT. Well done. But yeah, it's taken them 12 years, DT, but I think they might be finally getting it, kind of. Oh God. But yeah, that informality you're describing is precisely the point. It's because we're all sick and tired and bored to tears with all your decorum bullshit. And we're really sick and tired of you not realizing how little your establishment authoritative institutional decorum actually matters a whit. Namely, none. God damn it. Moving on.
Alright. That said, he's a buddy with a lot of opinions. I got one of those too.
Yeah, it's called being a real human being. It won't hurt you to be a real human being for like 5 seconds, I swear to God. Yeah, moving on. Sorry.
Right. That said, he's a buddy with a lot of opinions. Last year, he was temporarily banned from Twitch for saying that Palestinians were part of an inferior culture whose destruction he doesn't mourn. He apologized. Earlier this month, he attracted controversy for saying that transgender kids exist only because of adults' mental illness. Doubled down on that one. But his style is far from the stridency of provocateurs such as Candace Owens and Newsmax's Trump apologists. Instead, he's detached or wryly amused. He comes off like a burnt-out tutor hired to translate current events into gamer speak for distracted teens. For example, he said Trump's tariffs were fixing the Loot Council, equating global capital to gold or treasures earned in a World of Warcraft raid.
Again, that is simply what it looks like when someone is a real human being who doesn't have an entire institution up their ass. Like, this is the thing. Will they ever realize that the institutional decorum bullshit is the problem and precisely why they are losing? I live and hope for the day when they will finally at least approach level 1. Like, we're basically in the... It's been 12 years, but they just joined the tutorial mission, goddammit. Maybe they'll get to level 1 in another 12 years. Oh, God. Moving on.
Indeed, Asmongold's foray into political commentary often seems to have been undertaken half-heartedly. Gamer World's right-wing drift can be traced back to the Gamergate controversy, of a decade ago, when a vocal slice of gamers organized an angry backlash to game designers and journalists who had been trying to make the art form more diverse and inclusive.
No.
Hold on. All we wanted to do was play video games, as Gold said in a recent stream, and then they had to put girls in video games, and so now we have to elect Donald Trump to stop that. He was speaking.
No.
Hold on. He was speaking in a sarcastic deadpan, but he was suggesting a truth about the particular brand of conservatism that has taken hold of numerous men lately. In many cases.
Okay, he wasn't being sarcastic and deadpan about what actually happened. He was being sarcastic and deadpan about what you people think about what happened. Again, it's literally half a step forward, 4 steps back. You guys need to understand this, and you need to understand it well. Feminism is not women. Critical race theory and critical queer theory are not black people and gays. And postmodern deconstructionism and neo-Hegelianism more broadly is not good intellectually for anyone. And it never has been. You need to get out of this black and black reality of yours. Because you will not cope with the idea that a alternate framework than yours can even possibly exist, let alone that alternate framework could occasionally be more valid than yours. My fucking God. 1.5 step forward, 4 steps back. God damn it. Moving on.
Alright. In many cases, it's driven not by a committed belief system, but by a tribal vendetta against, to use one of his favorite terms, the retards of the identity-focused left.
You don't. They still don't get it. They still don't realize that they're the joke. They still don't realize they're the reason people are fucking angry, and that people are literally voting against them on purpose because of how much they dislike them. Like again, they just barely got to the tutorial mission and they're already crashing and burning. I don't even think that's technically possible in the metaphorical tutorial mission, but they somehow found a way. They found the quickest way to make it to the "you are a loser" end screen. God damn it! They hacked the system, but they didn't hack it in order to win. They hacked it in order to immediately fail. Lol. Moving on.
Alright. Victor Slur actually says a lot about Asmongold's outlook. He presents himself as standing for opinions that are so widely shared and so obvious that disagreeing with him means you're intellectually disabled, and the logic of his usage would suggest he thinks pitiful. He'll often reiterate that he's no partisan hack. Unlike many elected Republicans, he's in favor of universal basic income and a constitutional right to an abortion.
Based.
Hold on.
Well, the abortion thing is less based, but the universal basic income I will call based. I'm still on the Yang gang, even if Andrew Yang isn't. God damn it.
I place pretty much no values in principles or morality. He said in one stream, I think that these are top-down ideas that are given to you by the elites. The professed disregard for ideology is, of course, hardly rare these days. Joe Rogan's entire brand is free thinking. Even Trump likes to justify his decisions as being common sense.
They're so close. They're so close to at least completing the tutorial mission correctly. Yes, because it is actually true, you cunts. Because morality and ideology, particularly in the hyper-strict, hyper-authoritarian, hyper-normative, and hyper-regulatory form, is the problem, you twats. It is precisely the problem. Populism and libertarianism are based. Authoritarianism and hyper-normative institutionalism is cringe. It really, really, really is. At least in its first vector, that simple. God damn it. And you don't even need to be right wing or left wing to understand that. Like, you can be libertarian and populist on the left, a la Bernie Sanders in 2016, or you can be libertarian and populist on the right, a la usually, if not Trump, at least the people around Trump. It really is, at least in the, like, at first blush, it really is that simple. There's more complex shit to get onto, but I'm being charitable to you because it took you this long to approach what I would consider the basic bitch first move. God damn it.
Moving on.
Yes.
Alright.
Yeah, moving on. Sorry, I was trying to read what DT said. Based just means of the optics. I speak for. Yeah, fair enough, DT. That's a good informal definition for based. But on the topic of fuck the optics, I was gonna mention that as well. You seem to be like pompously, intellectually poo-pooing the idea that Asmongold thinks he speaks for everyone, but I hate to, like, you are literally making a populist or rather a popularity based like argument, and we actually do, like, for real, in all seriousness, have the numbers. And Asmongold has how many subscribers, how many views, how much engagement, and how many people IRL actually hold to his stated opinions as compared to the decorum and institution party again. Because again, like, the key factor here is whether or not his understanding of the world is true, or at least more true than the institutionalist decorum party opinion, which, yeah, no, it is. He does have more subscribers than you. He does have more engagement than you. He does speak for more real people than you, and he speaks with more people than you, so as to be in touch with what people actually think. So, yeah, no, he is objectively correct in as many measurable vectors as we have access to here. Moving on.
Alright. Just give me 1 sec. Right. This sort of logic is perhaps why the term NPC or non-player character has become trendy on the right. In video games, an NPC NPC is a computer-controlled ally or opponent, such as a blacksmith who sells the player gear and a goblin whom the player must slay. Their pool of dialogue is limited and their characterization thin. They have no real identity beyond how the player sees them. In recent years, Musk and many others have taken to calling their liberal opponents NPCs. Ironically enough, the disc suggests its own ideology. Politics isn't a dispute among philosophical visions for a better world or even a contest among constituencies for resources. It's a quest for certain humans who matter to defeat people-shaped obstacles that don't.
No, okay. You have completely put your foot up your ass again. The reason why people get called NPCs is because of this need for normative ideological conformity that literally does turn someone from a thinking, feeling, rational human being into a series of textbooks that has been downloaded more recently, or a series of news articles that has been downloaded more recently. And the fact that you, as a writer, even thought you needed to explain what an NPC was in 2025 is very much the problem. Because it says to me that you are speaking both, like, you are attempting to speak to a group of people who themselves is out of touch, because everyone who is in touch, like, even people who play like Candy Crush and other like boomer phone games by now know, at least in broad terms, what an NPC is. And the fact that you devoted like half of a fucking paragraph to the supposition that you needed to explain it says to me that you are a very out of touch person who is conveying this information to other very out of touch people. And by the way, your suppositions are also wrong. Not the NPC part, but the you take the very beginnings of correct data and then you form entirely wrong and ideologically warped conclusions from them. And therein lies the problem. This is why it's taken you guys 12 years to get this far. Because even if someone were to give you all of the available data, because the equations that you put that data in are so beyond fucked, no matter how much valid data you start with, you will always reach the wrong conclusion because your ideological framework is so thoroughly fucking your individualistic brain that you cannot form your own opinions, nor even correct opinions, because your ideological framework is so fucked to begin with. No matter what you do, no matter how much correct information goes in, wrong information will always come out because the shit that happens in the middle is a fucking Rube Goldberg machine of wrong. Moving on.
Yeah. This sort of logic is perhaps why okay, in this scheme, Trump is simply the man who's rescuing the country from the rule of the brainless. Asmongold's commentary about the president usually focuses not on whether any given decision by Trump is wise in its own right, but rather on how the average or normal person is going to react. Asmongold has, for example, little particular insight about the economy. I don't really care about whether the tariffs are good or bad. I don't give a fuck, he said in one stream. But he seems to have a Schadenfreude about the distress the tariffs have caused. Over and over, he's hammered at the idea that normal people don't care about the stock market in the same way that the elites who are criticizing Trump's policies do.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's actually true. I don't give a flying fuck. I really, honestly, right now, at the moment, speaking as a normal person, I'm just trying to just get the money I can to help support my family right now. That's about it.
Yeah, and this is the whole problem. You are so addicted to hyper abstract, hyper moralistic, hyper normative ideological frameworks. You literally cannot conceive of anyone who can function without them. Not only can you not conceive of such people, but even if someone raised the possibility of such people existing to you, you would think that they were morally suspect and wrong simply for not being hyper moralistic, hyper strict, hyper authoritarian, normative ideologues. And therein lies the problem. You can't conceive of a world in which people think differently from you and are, if not correct, at least valid to do so. That is very much the entire crux of the problem. Fuck me up and down the back and all the way around the world again. Fuck. God damn it. Moving on. Unless Brainstormer had to step away from the mic for a second. Brainstorm. Either he had to step away or he's having technical difficulties. We shall see which one in due course. Yeah, that's a fair point too, DT. But even so, like at least the Soviet twats were not so ideologically warped that they felt like they needed to tell the people what a marionette even was in the first place. These people, however, are so sheltered and arrogant and self-satisfied in their sheltered arrogance that they think they need to explain what an NPC is in 2025. Okay, thank goodness. Yeah, yeah. Apparently, those who actually know what the fuck is going on are the brainless ones. Lol. Anyway, moving on. Unless you left again.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry. Sometime. Okay, hold on. Where was I? Okay. Aspergold doesn't agree with everything Trump does, but he clearly thinks that the president is scaring the right people. Sometimes I'd start to wonder what I was doing spending time listening to Aspergold at all. Then I noticed that 60,000 people were watching live, or I'd go to his YouTube page and see that the viewership for any given clip from his stream ranges from hundreds of thousands to the millions. He may
Are they going to actually reach level 1 finally? Who knows?
It may sound like just some guy on the couch, but now he and many other guys on the couch have captured a slice of the voting public and have ties to political figures of influence. Not all gaming streamers are alike. Piker, who's been hyped as the potential Joe Rogan of the left. Now, in
Joe
news,
Rogan was already left wing. You guys shunned him. That's not his fault.
uh, hold on. In news coverage since the election, delivers heady Marxist theory and wonkish research on geopolitics in tone of a frat boy exuberance. But Asmongold is the more popular figure, and he's one member of a larger right-leaning ecosystem.
Okay, you guys seriously need to knock off this right and left shit. I have said this before, and I will say it 1,000 more times if I need to. The left-right axis is frankly useful for fuck all at this point. The axis that matters is the vertical one, and as much as I think that Hassan's actual opinions are authoritarian in nature, he is at least, I will give this to him, as much as I disagree with Hassan and think that he is a dangerous moron, he is at least a dangerous moron who is more in touch with reality than NBC, CNN, MSNBC, or any of the other like mainstream corporate media giants. Like Hassan may be an evil moron, but he is an evil moron who is capable of at least acknowledging reality exists. That is more than the mainstream media has been able to do for at least 10 to 12 years. Moving on.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Often while watching Asmongold, I thought about the video game concept of the meta. It refers to shared knowledge among dedicated players about the best practices.
Go
What?
ahead.
Right.
You're late to the party on this one. I think V started using the phrase "the new meta" what 5 years ago now. DT, you know more of the particulars on V than me usually. Fact check me on this. He's been using the phrase "the new meta" for like 5 years, right? Or somewhere along those lines.
Okay. Damn it, I lost my. Okay, give me. Hold on. Often while watching Asmongold, I thought about the video game concept, the meta. It refers to shared knowledge among dedicated players about the best practices for succeeding in a game. Sorry. Understanding the meta means approaching video games with a Moneyball mentality. It means knowing, say, the optimal sword to use against a particular boss. Gamers play the games for all sorts of reasons, to roleplay, to challenge themselves, to kill time with friends, but digging into the meta means looking beneath a fantastical veneer, story, graphics, so on, to exploit the rules. To see the world in this way means discounting the ideas that ostensibly govern our society, ethics, belief, norms, and instead processing life as a struggle for dominance.
Well, no, it's a struggle to get you people to realize you aren't the only people who matter in the fucking universe. And that's why I'm not interested in what you think is marginalizing or anything, because you people, unbeknownst to yourselves, somehow, will marginalize literally anyone who doesn't think in morality, in norms, and in abstract frameworks. Which, by the way, an easier way to summarize the concept of a meta is to video games what frameworks are to philosophy. It's very, very, very simple. And again, the fact that you thought you needed to explain it is somewhat telling in and of itself, because on the ground, in this thing we call real life and real people, everyone who even has passing like digital familiarity probably understands the concept of what a meta is. I will give it to you that meta is slightly more esoteric gaming-wise than NPC, but only marginally so, I would estimate.
Okay. Moving on, or anything else?
No, moving on. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to be sure. Alright, the strange thing about this view of politics is that it's seductive enough, perhaps even addictive enough, to pull people away from the greatest distraction on earth, video games. On the first day I turned in to Osmongold, I was amazed to find that it took him a full 5 hours of chit-chatting before he finally fired up Monster Hunter Wilds, a game about, well, hunting monsters. In combat, he frantically mashed buttons, hooting big dick whenever he was doing well. During cutscenes, videos, advancing the game's narrative, talked over the dialogue, issuing summaries like, so, I have to kill a big thing, right? Okay.
Again, he is a real person, and that is apparently very powerful in a world where we are governed by so many unreal people, while simultaneously insisting that those unreal people must be treated with seriousness because ma decorum and ma norms. Derp.
Okay. I recognize this hypnotized single-minded mentality from my own gaming experiences. After a certain amount of playtime, what's on screen stops looking like a coherent world and starts looking like inputs and outputs, challenges and rewards. And when you look up, reality feels like the screen. The fuck?
Yeah, these people are addicted to so much literary metaphor crap that they can't avoid just speaking entirely in woo.
Okay, also, I do have to say this, just for time's sake, the third oracle we had, we are going to have to skip, just because I have to get up early tomorrow for work.
Yeah, so it has to be bedtime relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean, usually I go to bed around 11, so we still got time, but I know us, so.
And I don't want you zoning out because you got too tired. So we will advance relatively quickly, or I will try to. But there's only so much stupid I can put up with before I have to rant. And I've been restraining myself for 3 days. I'm not restraining myself anymore.
All right. So this is from the WallStreetJournal.com. Disney wanted more from Marvel, now it wants less. This was written by Ben Fritz, published May 2nd, 2025.
Okay.
The subheader is the superhero studio is cutting back TV production, fixing its film slate after fans lost the plot. Okay.
If only they could. If only people were telling them this like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. Oh wait, they were. It took
Actually,
this.
I think it might have been longer now.
This is it's another one of these. This is what happens when you trap everything in bureaucratic institutions. It has taken them 5 years, at least, to get where we were in like 2020 or thereabouts. Don't like when was Quantumania released? Was that like 2023? I think it might have been 2023.
Let me look. Yeah, it was 2023.
Okay, so it's hard to pinpoint where things started to go wrong. I would go so far as to say when Endgame was released, but I know a lot of people disagree with me there. So and a lot of people did really, really like No Way Home. So let's say that the wheels started coming off the MCU sometime around when She-Hulk was released. And by when She-Hulk was released, I mean when it was first released, like the first episode. Because that episode 1 was cancer. That's why everyone memed it to death. And I like Multiverse of Madness a lot more than most people. Like a lot more than most people.
I like it too.
But that being said, I can acknowledge that Multiverse of Madness was pretty good, while still acknowledging, Jesus Christ, they shouldn't have forced Michael Waldron to write that thing. They should have just had Sam Raimi write the thing. And this is honestly no fault of Michael Waldron's. He was a very inexperienced writer at the time, and no one can go from writing a single episode of Rick and Morty to writing a whole ass show in Loki to writing a blockbuster movie in the space of literally like less than 2 or 3 years. That's a lot to ask of anyone, no matter how talented they are. And it was obvious that Michael Waldron didn't have writing experience. But as a result of his inexperience in writing, there are a lot of problems with Multiverse of Madness, and I can acknowledge that while still acknowledging that the movie is generally good. And that a lot of the criticism was farcical. Moving on, though.
Yeah, okay. Are they going? Oh, okay. Sorry, Drencher. I didn't see your comment until just now.
I think honestly, the previous article, the Asmongold one, they're probably more worried about Asmongold doing that than they are doing it themselves in that particular instance. But I do think, if not consciously, they probably were doing that implicitly. So much so and so pervasively so that they didn't even realize that's what they were doing until somebody like you mentioned it to them, that seemed like what they were doing. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. All right. Los Angeles, the head of Marvel Studios, told colleagues recently that watching all the comic book giants' new TV shows and films have started to feel more like homework than entertainment.
That wouldn't have happened, Kevin, if they were all good. The problem is that quite a lot of them were quite shit. And several of them were extremely shit.
Okay, so I also kind of want to play devil's advocate here. Kind of. I think also the issue, like, I'm not disagreeing with you, Dalton. I agree full-heartedly, but I think also the issue is that they've relied too heavily on the interconnectedness. But let me explain myself. First.
Yeah, go ahead.
They relied too heavily on it that it basically felt like we were watching one part of a movie, and we had to wait either a month or a year for the latter half of it, right?
Yeah, which goes back to what I was saying, or like I'll take the stuff that was connected to Multiverse of Madness as an example. In order to fully understand Multiverse of Madness, you had to watch Doctor Strange 1, you had to watch Thor Ragnarok, you had to watch Infinity War, you had to watch probably at least some of Loki, even though not much of Loki actually mattered to Multiverse of Madness. And you had to watch, of course, WandaVision and No Way Home. Even though I like Multiverse of Madness, it does have writing issues thanks to the inexperience of Michael Waldron. A good writer would have been able to, and again, why in the fuck didn't they just let Sam Raimi write it? And also, while we're on the topic of playing the blame game, the other problem is that the MCU used to keep its continuity fairly consistent because they saw continuity, consistency, and familiarity with the source material as their strengths, which they were, by the way. But in the 2020s, they for some reason got it in their heads that they needed to go out of their way to hire people who had active contempt for the source material and the prospect of keeping current with the actual continuity, which is a big problem, even in spite of all the interconnectedness. But back to my point. My point is, a good writer would have and should have been able to find a way to summarize the elements of WandaVision and the elements of, well, honestly, most people probably had seen Infinity War because, it made $2 billion plus bastarding dollars at the peak of Marvel's powers. But they should have at least. Actually, no, I missed one. Fuck me, I missed one, and it's sad that I missed one because the other one that should have gotten referenced in Multiverse of Madness that probably didn't, was Werewolf by Night. Probably the best thing in Mystic Marvel, full stop. And I'm not in any way disparaging Agatha All Along. Agatha All Along is right underneath Werewolf by Night in my MCU ranking list. But yeah, you should have found ways to better incorporate, better summarize, and better sort of rehash in a way that would have felt organic the events that people needed to know from WandaVision so that you could come from not having seen WandaVision and still understood Multiverse of Madness. Had they done that, this wouldn't have been such a problem. But Captain America 4 had the problem even worse. Now, mind you, they had the additional problem of rewriting the thing on the fly like 5 different times. But apart from that, even, in order to know what the fuck was going on in Cap 4, you obviously had to see the first 3 Caps and all the Avengers movies, but that part's fairly normal, and I don't think most people have a problem with it. What you did need to watch to understand Cap 4 that was a bigger ask because they were shit was Eternals, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and She-Hulk. In order to fully grasp everything that was going on in that movie, you had to at least watch those 3 things. And all 3 of those things were dog shit. Multiverse of Madness had it easier because episode 9 notwithstanding, the first 7 episodes of WandaVision were at least okay and interesting TV viewing, and episode 8 was genuinely really, really freaking awesome. And then, of course, Agatha came along and did 7 more episodes just like that one. So, yeah, Agatha. But point being, the quality of the content that Multiverse of Madness was founded upon was just better, full stop. And then you throw in having to have the same level of familiarity with the shows and stuff for Cap 4, and all the shows and movies it connected to were dog shit. Therein lies a much bigger problem. Moving on.
Okay. The problem, Kevin Feige acknowledged, is that in an effort to satisfy parent company Disney's hunger for content on its new streaming service, the studio behind the Avengers churned out too many movies and shows that interconnected stories. Okay.
That's honestly, not the problem. Go ahead.
We already reiterated. Yeah, we're not going to reiterate. The deluge of material from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU, on Disney Plus overwhelmed and eventually alienated viewers. It's
not the amount; it's the quality.
Yes,
and the way it's connected. I do think the way it's connected matters more than the fact that it is connected.
Yeah,
If you connected it in a way that made sense, no one would bat an eye. Just like they didn't bat an eye for the first 10 years of the MCU.
All right. Okay. Okay. Son of a bitch. All right. Eventually, alienating viewers. It also stretched Feige and his team's resources thin, diluting the quality of their output. Okay.
I don't think that's what did it. I think hiring a bunch of hacks who explicitly had no familiarity with the source material and didn't want to get it was a bigger again. You're acting like the numbers were the issue, and the numbers weren't the issue. The numbers game would have worked just like the early years of the MCU had worked if they were good enough to keep people on the edge of their seat, just like they were, just like the movies were in phases 1 through 3, or at least tried to be in 1 through 3. Even the first 3 phases had their duds, but the reason why the duds of the first 3 phases didn't matter quite so much is because the ones that were good were so good that they erased a lot of the bad ones. But unfortunately, the ratio of golds to shit has gone up in the shit's favor, and therein lies the problem. Now there are tiny flecks of gold intermixed with a bunch of shit instead of little specks of shit intermixed with giant slabs of gold.
Oh. Moving on?
Yeah, moving on.
One thing. Okay. Marvel's box office sales, streaming popularity, and formerly untouchable position in pop culture suffered. Now Feige is leading an internal overhaul aimed at getting the studio back on track. Marvel is making fewer TV shows with standalone stories that don't require prior knowledge of the MCU. Feige is focused on fixing the studio's movie slate following recent flops like February's Captain America Brave New World. The first major test of his reset arrived this week with Thunderbolts, about a team of sidekicks, has-beens, and other C-listers who save the world in the Avengers' absence.
And we will get into the effectiveness of that in a bit. Long story short, it's not that much of a change. It is it is vaguely on the positive side, but it's not that much of a change.
Just we'll get there. Just I don't want you to for lack of a better term, blow your metaphorical load yet.
Moving on.
Early box office sales indicate that it will open to between $70 million and $75 million in the U.S. and Canada this weekend, which will put it in the lowest tier of the company's releases.
It did, and the only thing that really saved it was the strength of its second weekend.
Moving on?
Yep.
All right. Still, reviews for Thunderbolts have been largely positive. If fans like the film, they'll likely be proud to see July's The Fantastic Four First Steps. That movie's story will lead directly to a pair of Avengers sequels in 2027.
I don't think that logically follows. I don't think people who
can I just want to finish. I just want to finish the sentence. Avengers sequels in 2026 and 2027 that Marvel needs to be massive hits to restore its former glory. Feige declines request for an interview. This article is based on interviews with more than a dozen people who have worked at Marvel or done business with the studio.
Okay, but here's the problem with the thought process here. Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are very, very different movies based on very, very different IPs. I do not think it follows that people who like Thunderbolts will necessarily like Fantastic Four. I'm not saying there's no crossover, because that would be stupid, but I am saying if you're banking on the quality of Thunderbolts to have a positive impact on first steps, I think you are playing yourself. I think they're different enough that people are going to judge them as separate entities. As well they should, for they should be separate entities, because Thunderbolts is a very, very, very street level IP. Fantastic Four is at least considerably more cosmic than that.
Okay, Feige, 51 years old, is widely acknowledged as the most successful movie producer in modern Hollywood. After starting as an assistant to the producer of 2000's X-Men, he was hired by Marvel that year and rose to become the final decision maker on everything from scripts to casting, editing, and visual effects. Okay, I did not know he's 51. That's actually really impressive.
He looks young for his age. I would have guessed maybe late 30s.
Yeah, so he got in pretty early. That's actually impressive.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah. Under his guidance, Marvel released an unprecedented string of hits, including Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Black Panther. Along the way, Marvel was acquired by Disney for $4 billion in 2009. Its crowning achievement was 2019's Avengers Endgame, which united the storylines and characters of all 21 films that preceded it and grossed $2.8 billion, a record at the time.
That's false, because its crowning achievement was in fact the movie before that, Infinity War. Endgame failed to cash any of the checks, or at least most of the checks written by Infinity War, and most of the things people think happened in Endgame and that people think they liked about Endgame actually happened in Infinity War. That's why I personally date the failures of the MCU to Captain Marvel, the movie that came out just before Endgame, because Endgame was barely an improvement over Captain Marvel. It was an improvement due to how bad Captain Marvel was, but Endgame is not significantly better than Captain Marvel. It peaked with Infinity War, and we need to stop lying and saying it was Endgame. Moving on.
All right. During Marvel's heyday in 2010s, Feige was heavily involved in film development. He deployed lower-ranking executives to supervise shooting, then got his hands dirty again in the editing room, often making significant changes and ordering new scenes. His longtime deputy, Luis Despacito, had a recurring joke: "We could fix any movie if we shoot it again." On 2013's Thor: The Dark World, there were 35 days of reshoots, longer than the
Bless you. And it was still shit, by the way. The reshoots may have helped, but I can't imagine how bad it must have been before the reshoots if Thor: The Dark World as released was the best they could do.
Longer than the entire production of many low-budget films. Though the studio had a few early duds, Feige's process worked almost flawlessly for years. Every film Marvel released between 2010 and 2019 was a hit, grossing an average of about $1 billion. Fans loved that each had a distinct tone, but were bound together by an overarching narrative. The movies were overseen by a small team of creative executives who came to be known as the Parliament. Most had with the company since its founding or joined as assistants and were promoted, giving Marvel a family-like culture. Feige was the studio's beloved and charismatic dad, a creative genius from whom everyone sought attention and approval.
Okay, that's good, but then, for some inexplicable reason, most of the Parliament got jettisoned and was replaced with people who not only didn't want to get, who not only weren't familiar with the continuity or the IPs that the continuity was based on, but actively resented and shunned and shamed any impression that they should be made to be familiar with the IPs these movies are based on, or the actual continuity of the movies they're working with. And that is why phases 4 through 5 have been more consistently shit than they have been good, and just like a rising tide can raise all ships, like phases 1, 2, and 3, a lowering tide ends up grounding most ships. I even will acknowledge there have been some really good movies since Phase 4. Multiverse of Madness, Werewolf by Night, Agatha All Along was great. No Way Home was pretty good, and yes, I know Brainstormer has his issues with it. I do as well, but they're different issues. And Deadpool and Wolverine was pretty good, but overwhelmingly, for every one Agatha or Werewolf by Night, there were 3 She-Hulks, or Falcon and the Winter Soldiers, etc., or Secret Invasions, etc. So therein lies the problem. When a rising tide is capable of raising all ships, a lowering tide will fuck them and ground them. Moving on.
Okay. Sorry. Alright, soon after Endgame, creative staffers began meeting in their office on the Disney studio lot to figure out where the MCU could possibly go next. In the nearby executive building, Disney senior leadership had another priority. Chief Executive Bob Iger was launching. He needed loads of new series for it and was counting on Marvel to provide many of them.
Which wouldn't have been a bad idea if they weren't shit.
The quote here from the word. The strategy became just expansion. Feige recently told colleagues he, because of his zealousness to tell more stories and a desire to be an ex-citizen. Two Disney Plus shows came out. One, the time travel adventure Loki, and WandaVision, which continued to the story game in a satirical sitcom world. Both were. Oh no! Okay, never mind. It's describing. Okay, never mind. Both were hits.
Moderate ones, at least.
Yeah.
It was still a skill issue, though, because episode 9 of WandaVision would not have been produced under a non-skill issue having regime. Although I will say, regardless of how I feel about the absolute fuck you that episode 9 of WandaVision was, Jack Schaefer, the woman who gave us WandaVision, and did so without any familiarity with the comics, did redeem herself by getting familiar with not only the comics, but also IRL magic. And that benefited the sequel series Agatha All Along so very much. And I will give it to her. Her impetus of improving was she wanted to make a show worthy of the fandom that she didn't realize existed prior to the end of WandaVision. And that is a far more sane, more reasonable, and more positive attitude than most art school educated hacks in today's day and age have. A lesser writer, of which there are many, would just demonize the fan base and spite them even further. But Jack Schaefer didn't do that. She saw the reaction to the fandom, and rather than shun and shame and claim toxicity, she decided, I'm going to find out what they're all so hyperfixated on. She did, and then when she realized what made, or at least part of what made that fandom exist in the first place, she used that information to make Agatha a much better show than WandaVision was. Moving on.
Both Marvel's transition from producing a few hours of movie content annually to several dozen hours of streaming shows and films eventually broke down the studio's process.
No.
Hold on. Don't.
Go ahead.
A pair of executives oversaw each show while Feige remained the final decision maker on every significant creative issue, even though there were exponentially more decisions to make each day.
It's not the numbers. It's the quality. Like to quote one of the great parable or one of the great axioms of gaming, skill issue. It was a skill issue. That is the issue. It's not the numbers. It's not the amount. It is simply a skill issue. Make something good and people will give a shit. You can't do that now because you made so many bad ones that people were unwilling to check out ones like Agatha. And as someone who found Agatha incredibly moving and it extremely resonated with me, that does piss me off. But unfortunately, you can't cry She-Hulk so many times before people just tune you out and or react as though pretty much everything you make is likely to be another She-Hulk. When you cry wolf so many times, eventually when the wolf actually shows up, you will wind up you will wind up being eaten by the wolf because no one will believe your ass anymore. And that is exactly what happened. You claimed She-Hulk was good. You claimed Falcon and the Winter Soldier was good. You claimed Secret Invasion was good, and you claimed Echo was good. And all of those were varying degrees of awful horseshit. So eventually, when you actually did have one that was worth a damn, like Werewolf by Night or Agatha, no one was willing to give it a chance anymore because you had already burned up all your goodwill. And as much as that annoys me, I can't change reality. Moving on.
Alright. People who worked at Marvel in the early 2020s said it was challenging to secure enough time with Feige to get his feedback. As a result, they sometimes spent weeks on work that proved irrelevant once he weighed in, and found themselves a little time to implement his changes before a deadline. Desperate staffers resorted to chasing Feige in the halls to get answers. Long known as one of the most frugal studios in Hollywood, Marvel began spending like crazy. As in other media companies started streaming services, cost was no object in the race to impress Wall Street with big increases in subscribers. Marvel series made in the early 2020s regularly cost more than $100 million a season, and sometimes approached $200 million because they included A-list actors and costly visual effects.
You cared about literally everything except quality control. And that is why the quality you got out of this was intermittent at best and utterly bullshit at worst. To the point that, again, after 3 or 4 She-Hulks or Falcon and the Winter Soldiers, no one was willing to give Agatha or Werewolf by Night or the Guardians Holiday Special a chance.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, this is a pretty long article, so I think we're going to have to stop around 9 and then move on to the next stuff. So we can.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah. Moving on, or do you have anything else to add?
No, moving on.
Okay. Marvel fatigue is the next part of this article. The internal dysfunction began to show in Marvel's output. Viewers complained that there was too much Marvel content to keep up with, and a growing proportion of it felt subpar. Yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah, no, the second part of that sentence is more important than the first. It's not the amount. It's if you're gonna ask me to devote so many hours of my life to this, it had better be a good investment, and a lot of it wasn't. Moving on.
I loved it for so many years, but after all the TV shows and everything, it just started getting a little confusing and all over the place. Said Leslie Rodriguez, a 23-year-old social media manager.
Okay, the fact that she is a social media manager makes me take her opinion a little bit less seriously. But aside from that, again, it's not the amount, it was the fact that it was confusing, and a lot of this shit was confusing because it was poorly written and poorly understood and poorly communicated to the audience even when it was halfway well understood. The same thing happened with The Acolyte. It wasn't confusing because it's any more complex than the rest of Star Wars. It was confusing because the writers had no idea what they were doing, and neither did the people watching it. Moving on.
All right. Where was I? Okay. Fans reject a big budget event series like the alien attack drama Secret Invasion, starring Samuel L. Jackson.
Which was horrible.
Fun fact: there is a YouTuber I've mentioned it before, Nano V Movies. He did a full rewrite of that series, and actually really good.
I'm not surprised. He's very good at doing that.
Yeah. Shows the company was proud of including Miss Marvel, about a Pakistani American teenager who gains superpowers, failed to attract many viewers. From what I heard, it's not a bad show.
It's okay, but unfortunately, okay doesn't cut the mustard.
It's better than most shit we've seen from Marvel recently.
This is true. This is true, but if you're gonna have so many duds, the non-duds have to be all the more exceptional just to win people's trust back.
All right, moving
on. Yes. DT Brainstormer will probably leave it in the Discord after this.
Oh yeah, sure.
He wants a link to Nando.
Oh yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'll do that later. Actually, I could do that now. Actually, I got my phone with me, so I could do that. Yeah, give me a sec on that. I'll send it. I'll put in one of the feeds. Probably pop up in your notifications where it is for the Discord. And I'll also send the video itself because I think it's good and you should check it out. Okay. Biggest during this period where nostalgia plays that tied storylines such as Spider-Man No Way Home and
I'm assuming he's grabbing the thing.
What? I'm talking.
Okay, your mic decided to be intermittent there for a second. Or the disconnect was on my end. We will see in a second, I guess.
In theaters, Marvel's biggest hits during this period were nostalgia plays that tied up old Spider-Man No.
You got
Hello?
to the end of No Way Home and then it canceled out again for some reason.
Motherfucker! In theaters, Marvel's biggest hits during this period were nostalgia.
No, you got to the end of No Way Home and then it cut out.
I'm rereading it for clarity of the audience.
Okay.
Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes.
There.
Okay. Finally, it's back. I don't know why it cut out to begin with, but yeah.
have shit internet. What else could it be?
That's true. Fair enough.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Dawn? Or
No, although I don't think it was quite the nostalgia that did it. I think it's just that those ones actually tied into the multiverse concept that people were told was supposed to be the main selling point of this phase, whereas a lot of them didn't. Like the only movies that really tie into the multiverse saga so far are um are No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and Deadpool and Wolverine. And No Way Home almost made it to 2 billion. Um, Deadpool and Wolverine made well over 1 billion, and Multiverse of Madness made just shy of 1 billion because China was still closed at the time, and Doctor Strange was really popular in China. Hello, Zoria. How are you?
I Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was critical to MCU's future because it featured the title villain of the next planned Avengers sequel, subtitled The Kang Dynasty. But the early 2023 film flopped at the box office, was widely panned. Okay, so many. For one thing, it doesn't help about the actor and all that shit.
Right.
Um,
Having to ditch Kang at the last second is a bit annoying. Yes.
Honestly, they because that character exists, supposed to have variants throughout all time. Literally, could just recast him. It's the easiest character to recast.
It was in Jonathan Majors' contract that every variant of Kang would be played by him.
That's why they had to get. Damn it!
That's why they had to swap in Doom at the last second.
It's so fucking stupid.
Why they put that in the contract to begin with, or why they let him insist upon that, I don't fucking know. But I guess he did.
Okay. And sorry. So I'm just getting that thing I told for
yeah. I saw the notification ping.
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting the video. But okay. But honestly, and again, I think I've told you this pitch before. Is to kind of build it up for one thing. Yes, it does have to be a lot more. It has to be a darker film, which for Ant-Man is weird. I will admit, but.
Mm-hmm. But if you're gonna make an Ant-Man movie the debut of your next big bad, you gotta really explain to us why he's the next Thanos, essentially, or explain to the normies why he's the next Thanos. I know why he's the next Thanos, but the normies wouldn't know that unless they get it demonstrated to them.
But yeah, he and I've seen some pitches Scott sacrificed himself to keep that variant of Kang stuck in the quantum realm.
Mm-hmm.
I've also pitched there should be a version of him, Iron Lad.
Mm-hmm.
In the but that's just me. For people who don't know, in the Young Avengers, there's a character called Iron Lad who's played by Nathaniel Richards, who is a young version of Kang the Conqueror, who is trying to deny. Well, he's trying to deny his what his future will be.
Yeah, he basically saw what all the other versions of him did and went, fuck no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So he has kind of like this dark destiny always holding like a sword of Damocles over his head.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, but he does actually eventually beat it. Good for him.
I have no idea.
They haven't really done anything with him since, like, what, 2013? Because rather than use the actually already diverse characters they have to force new versions of diversity into characters who are already pre-established. Hence why Iceman is gay, despite the fact that Hawkley and Wiccan were sitting right there.
Right. Anyway, let's get a little more through this. Employees talked regularly about Marvel fatigue. They were they had created a No New Fans Club in which people unfamiliar with the state of the MCU couldn't watch a new release because they'd have no idea what was going on.
It's not even that. Again, it boils down fundamentally to a skill issue, to a quality issue. If the shows you were obligating people to watch were a joy to watch more often than not, people would have done so. But because there have been so many She-Hulks and so many Falcon and the Winter Soldiers and so many Secret Invasions and so many Echoes, people are now unwilling to take a chance on an Agatha or a Daredevil Born Again. Despite the fact that both Agatha and Daredevil Born Again, and yes, edgelords, I am putting those in the same sentence and comparing them positively together because they are both very good shows. The people. Notice. Sorry, small side rant. But notice how the usual suspects, the Garys and the Maulers and Critical Drinkers, basically all but ignored Agatha. That's because they were hyping it up in their heads to be the next Acolyte, and then they watched it and they realized it was good enough that they couldn't convincingly lie about it, and so they just didn't talk about it at all, which is hilarious to me. Like you would think that Agatha would be a perfect example of how you do a female character without making it an overbearingly feminist character. But for some reason, nobody felt like making the "this is how Marvel should do it right" explanation.
Not to mention, I'm assuming Iceman isn't bi, he's gay, invalidating every heterosexual relationship he's had.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I am fine with the idea that a formerly straight guy finds that he suddenly might also, keyword being also, have an attraction to some dudes. I do not now, nor have I ever, not even when Joss Whedon did it. Fuck you, Joss. Willow is bi. She is not gay. Because the relationship with Oz still fucking exists. Yeah, but I do not subscribe to the theory that I guess I should say your sexuality can expand or can shift a little bit, but it doesn't go from black to white or from. No, I don't mean in the racial sense. I mean in the sense of you can't have one thing that is entirely one thing and then the thing that is the exact categorical opposite of that same thing at the same time. Excuse me, I have to go yell at the dog. He's digging in the cat's litter box. Ragnar, no.
Okay. Not a sentence I never thought I'd hear him say, but alright. Uh, How's everyone doing tonight? Like so far? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's what I did. I turned the mic off by accident.
I thought you did that on purpose.
No, I meant to turn the camera off and leave the mic on, but I guess I hit the wrong button as I was scrambling to get the dogs taken care of. Anyway, moving on.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna read a little bit more of this, and then we'll move on. Meanwhile, Wall Street's obsession with streaming growth gave way to a focus on profitability. Iger and Feige began scrutinizing Marvel's cost and creative choices more closely. At the last second, Marvel decided the script for its vampire movie, Blade, wasn't good enough and halted production in 2023, while equipment was being shipped to sound stages in Atlanta. Okay, see, that pisses me off because, one, the actor who was going to play him is a phenomenal actor, and I think he would have done Blade very well.
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah. I knew the name,
You didn't know how to pronounce it?
No, I was blanking for a second. Like, I knew the actor. I was blanking on the name for a second there. You know.
Yep, it happens.
Yeah. Fuck was I gonna? God damn it! I was gonna say something.
Blade.
Right. Yeah, I honestly thought it would be pretty cool, mainly because we haven't gotten a Blade movie in like over 20 or so years.
And controversial opinion, the Blade movies we got in the late 90s were not enough like the comic characters. And it would have been nice to get a proper comic accurate Blade.
I think that I will say this. I think the design they originally had for Blade in the comics was greatly needed for an upgrade, and Wesley Snipes' design that has stayed with the character ever since.
Right. I'm just saying in terms of it's the same problem I have with the Fox X-Men movies and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. They didn't have enough faith in the source material to just adapt the source material. They felt like they needed to fix them, and that was bullshit.
Blade was a relatively niche character, so
was Hellboy, and yet Guillermo del Toro had no qualms with just adapting shit from the comics. That's why Hellboy was ahead of its time, and Blade aged rather poorly, much like the Fox. I think the Fox X-Men movies had it the worst.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, the first two Blades I would say are actually pretty good. Still, I think they hold up in my opinion, but it's whatever.
Anyway, moving on.
Okay. When production started in 2023 film, the Marvel's filmmakers got little attention from the overstretched Feige. After Quantumania bomb, Feige became more involved, hoping to avoid a second faceplant in 1 year. Filmmakers cycled through dozens of versions of a voiceover to catch up viewers with plot points from past movies and series they needed to understand, but it wasn't enough. The Marvels, which cost around $300 million, was Marvel's biggest ever bomb, grossing just $206 million.
That was basically inevitable, and that had nothing at all to do with the rest of Phase 4. The reason the Marvels bombed was because no one liked Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel coasted to $1 billion on the back of basically inertia, and the money that the Marvels made is exactly what Captain Marvel should have made and would have made if it hadn't come out right between Infinity War and Endgame. It has nothing to do with the rest of Phase 4 and everything to do with a rebuke and a judgment call, or a judgment being rendered on the first one. Anyway, moving on to the next thing. We will get to the second half, or however many parts need to be until
we were
finish that
past
article.
we were past only 20% of that.
Yeah, so we may have a new white whale. Who knows?
Probably not. Okay.
I don't think there's as much stupid contained in that article, so probably
Okay.
not going to be as engaging as the rewriting Ripley article.
Okay, so Thunderbolts review, because we have both seen it and we both had time to really think about the movie. So first off, non-spoiler, I would say it's actually fairly good compared to like what we've gone before.
It's certainly
granted-
better than Cap 4,
right?
and it's better than Quantumania. It's better than Love and Thunder. It's better than Wakanda Forever.
Okay, see, you and I have a
Wakanda Forever had some good emotional moments, but it couldn't. The good emotional moments of Wakanda Forever couldn't hold up the rest of the movie.
I do think Namor was pretty good though. Like everything about him was pretty cool.
Like he's fine. He just they should have just made a Namor movie. God damn it! But
okay,
never mind.
But what the fuck else? Yeah, it's I think it's genuinely good. Like, to be fair, like there were moments in look, not to get deep or personal here, but I really felt that I really felt a lot in this movie.
Okay, then you are going to be more positive on it than I am. I don't have anything really excessively negative to say about it. I just saw it as like the very definition of the exact middle of the road, and I came to this conclusion literally. I came to this conclusion literally after ranking it compared to everything else in the MCU, and it wound up literally 25 out of 50.
Hey,
bear in mind, I include the shows and stuff on
so
my. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, just to point this out, not saying it's inherently biased of you or anything, but this movie is not at all within your wheelhouse. Or
no, it doesn't attempt to do any of the things that I wish it would do. Although I will say the Void does get close at times, kind of. So okay. there is that, but yeah, for those that don't know, this is how my ranking list works. Sorry. Hello?
No, please. Just
okay. How the way I rank the MCU movies is such that I am actually harsher on movies that actually do cater to my wheelhouse, whereas I tend to grade the movies that are not part of my wheelhouse on a curve, which is why the top 10 of the MCU for me and the bottom 10 of the MCU for me are both very cosmic and mystical oriented, whereas most of the street level movies that don't attempt to give me any of what I want wind up usually in the middle, because I feel like I am compelled to rate movies that I'm not the audience for on a curve, because yeah, I would judge you for not giving me what I want, but by the same token, I know you're not trying to give me what I want. When Eternals fails to give me what I want, on the other hand, it is going through all 9 circles of hell, because if I'm not the target audience for an Eternals movie, someone is damn fucked up. But yes, Thunderbolts is the very definition of a street level, grounded sort of movie, and thus it was destined to wind up somewhere in the middle of the pack, no matter what happened to it. Pretty much, on the grounds that I knew it was not trying to give me what I want, and thus was more charitable to it than I otherwise would have been.
All right.
Go ahead.
Like I said, I genuinely like this movie. It's actually got a lot of heart, it's a lot more work. Like, there's a lot more work I think has been put into this than a lot of other movies that have come out from Marvel relatively recently.
Yeah, that's why it's above most of the ones that have come out relatively recently.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
And for those for whom this is the first day, and I say this because I know everyone who knows me well enough to say so knows this. Emotional stuff doesn't work on me usually. So, like, you have to put in a lot of work to get me to feel anything. I am more intellectually oriented. So that is why Brainstormer is going to be the one talking about the emotional stuff, and I am just going to let him go because this is his area of expertise.
Okay, sorry. I just thought you were going to keep talking. Okay.
No, I was trying to leave it open for you to come in, and honestly, I was expecting you to bust my balls a little bit, being the cold, emotionless robot type thing. But never mind.
You know what you are. You know what you are.
Yeah, but I was setting it up for you, and you just kind of left me hanging. I feel a little bit bad now.
To be fair, I was trying to remember what I was going to say before you interrupted me. Lost my train of thought there.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Okay. Yes. It's one of the very few, because I think there's only like a handful of Marvel movies that have ever really gotten me like to get like genuinely emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And this is definitely one of those movies. I think because it certain, for lack of a better term, because I know you hate this specific word, Dalton, or what it represents, whatever, themes or concepts or ideas that have been introduced in this movie.
It wasn't overbearing about them either, which is why I didn't really mention them either.
That's okay. That's fair. Kind of speak a lot to me, just given my life, and I'm not going to get into that, mind you, but it did hit a specific chord within me.
In short, folks, he's seen some shit in his time. Our Brainstormer.
Yeah. And I guess also I think it just handled it a lot more tactfully than other things I've seen that cover similar topics before, and actually provided a way, just something like super interesting. It's like, again, it's like something you don't really see often in recent superhero media that talks about this stuff in a way that doesn't seem to be either patronizing or insulting or
cringy.
Thank you. It's also not like proselytizing it either. It's not like on a soapbox preaching to you.
It's not screaming at the top of its lungs.
Right. But also, okay, I'm gonna be fully honest. I liked all the characters. Like, they were all pretty well written, and just genuinely not like, none of them were really insufferable or annoying. And granted, these were characters that obviously are like from things and stuff that most people didn't like or didn't understand or whatever, or didn't get a chance to properly be developed.
Yeah, the deck was very much stacked against them, and I think for me the key word to describe this movie And I think why it does feel so fresh as compared to the last like 5 or 6 of these is competence. It is a very, very competent movie.
Right.
And that is a world of difference compared to what we had for the most part recently.
Fuck, I had something. God damn it. Okay, I know you said this is kind of well, I don't know if I know you're not big on it because you're very big scale kind of deal. But I do respect that it was very ground level, and to explain that, to define it, is that it actually would like the kind of third act was showing the on ground perspective, which was not something we had seen in a long time in many Marvel movies.
Scale wise, it's very much in the same category as Winter Soldier was.
That or Ant-Man possibly as well, like the first 2 Ant-Man movies.
I think it's a little bit bigger than Ant-Man because there's there are so many moving parts with it.
Yeah, I know, but I think you see my kind of point there. Though.
No, I get where you're coming. The reason I picked Winter Soldier is because this movie is actually quite similar to Winter Soldier. As much as we preemptively bitched about there shouldn't be so many super soldiers in the Thunderbolts, there shouldn't be an overrepresentation of super soldiers. Given that there is an overrepresentation of super soldiers, given that that's the hand we're dealt, it's probably unsurprising that many of the elements of this movie are very reminiscent of Winter Soldier. I don't think it's as good as Winter Soldier, but then again, I also don't think Winter Soldier is as good as a lot of people think. So there's that.
As a big fan of that movie, I feel the mandatory thing to do is to say go fuck yourself. But
hey, it's or at least I think it's in my top 10.
Okay, still, go fuck yourself.
I just don't get the like mindless love affair a lot of people have for it. Is the thing.
Okay, mindless I can understand. I have my reasons why I like it. Obviously,
and again, it especially for a street level movie, which as we already established is very much not my thing. The fact that it is as high up as it is on my top 10 should tell you a lot.
Right.
But that being said, yeah, a lot of people seem to almost simp for Winter Soldier, and I don't get it at all.
Okay, back to Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels genuinely nice. For one thing, it's actually very well shot. Like, okay, for me to get into the more technical aspects, it's very well shot. Like, okay, I know I've thrown this out many times before, but like looking at Captain America: Brave New World, right?
Mm-hmm.
This feels like it genuinely had someone behind the camera know how to make it look like a movie.
And another good way to describe this movie, in addition to what I said earlier about it being a very competent movie, as opposed to what we've gotten a lot lately, this is basically the tone that Brave New World should have gone for.
Right. To be fair, from what I've heard, it does seem like the original intent of the director was to be similar to like the shooting and even the story, but it kind of got fucked over by like editing, like over editing and stuff.
The reshoots, are we including shit from Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Or are we not? Are we including shit from She-Hulk? Are we not? Are we doing the Serpent Society? Or are we not? Etc. Etc.
Yeah. So it's which is super annoying, but anyway.
Clusterfuck.
Yeah. I feel bad for, like, again, oftentimes I'm going to feel bad for creatives when their vision gets fun. Even if it's bad, at least it's their vision and it gets to be judged accordingly, Yeah,
I will be a little bit harsher than Brainstormer on that point, because my 2 cents on the whole creative vision thing is we send you to an eye doctor when your terrestrial vision is bad. We should be able to.
Don, that's not what I was saying.
No, but I'm contrasting us. My motto, or actually, I have two. When I have two mottos when it comes to the whole concept of creative vision. One, if we can send you to an eye doctor when your terrestrial vision is bad, we should be able to admit when your creative vision is bad. Two, I love the Nick Fury quote from Avengers 1. I respect that you have made this decision, but given that it's a stupid ass decision, I elect to ignore it.
Okay, don't.
That's my motto when it comes to creative
you
vision.
completely misinterpreted what I said. That's not at all what I meant. What I meant was, if you're going to make something bad, at least, like, okay, because the studio oftentimes fucks up a director or whoever is working on a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stay with me. And the director gets completely fucked over, and oftentimes their vision or idea originally gets marred. Like, it's a similar thing with what happened, like BVS, Justice League, Suicide, like 2016 Suicide Squad, right? Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I don't think those movies would have been good, as we saw with Ultimate Edition of BVS and Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I assume with David Ayer.
Yeah. No. Nothing.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on. Let me finish,
Go ahead.
please.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I still don't think they would have been good, but they would have at least been judged properly by the merit of the creative's intent. Now, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with anything like that. But what I'm saying is, do not give us a patchwork Frankenstein of a movie with mandates and studio interference that was never the director's intention, and thus is judged half-heartedly or full-heartedly to think that was the intention of the original creator.
Yeah.
I propose that.
Go ahead.
Just one final thing. My proposal, obviously, is if let the creative put out their content or the product, effectively, to call it that,
and then it can pass or fail on its own merits.
Yes.
And boy howdy, if Zack Snyder isn't a perfect example of the use of the Nick Fury quote I just outlined. Zack Snyder is probably the poster child for the "I respect you have made this decision, but given the stupid ass decision, I've elected to ignore it."
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you completely on that. I'm just saying my point. Obviously, is like, let the creatives make the movie, and if it sucks, let it be judged so. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just. What I was gonna say, just a quick thing. I'm just sick of us. Don't get me wrong. We're going to judge those studio man shit as it is. That's all we got. I hate that we don't get judged accordingly with the original vision.
Yeah. The reason I went. Go ahead.
No, it just could have been better. It could have been worse. It just all really depends, and we never get that.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I went on the little mini rant that I went on just now is there are some people, even people I respect, cough cough, Eglantine, who seem to believe, like axiomatically, that if something is someone's creative vision, it therefore makes their creative vision sacrosanct. And that's where my adage of we send you to an eye doctor when your terrestrial vision is bad. Why can't we admit to ourselves when someone's creative vision is shit? But
yeah, that makes sense.
That's why I ended up going on that side rant, because there are some people who almost like sycophantically worship the very concept of creative vision, regardless of whether that creative vision is worth a damn or not.
Right. No. Okay. See, that is. Yeah, we both agree on that. That's incredibly idiotic and short-sighted. Again, it's just my point.
Take it up with Eglantine. He is way too charitable when it comes to creative vision, quote unquote.
But no, I mean, I kind of understand him on that point, but I agree with you that, again, my point obviously is just let it be judged as it was intended.
Mhm.
Because I feel somewhat disheartened if someone made a good movie and it gets called bad because some producer who thinks that went to like one class of a filmmaking art house college course thinks he knows better than someone who's actually worked on a fucking movie.
Well, and a perfect example of this is particularly Justice League. Whatever you may think of the 4 bastarding hour epic that is Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's still kind of bad at times, but
I will, yeah, I will agree on that. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Please finish your thought, and then I'll
yeah,
add mine.
but compare compare Zack's Justice League with Justice League, and you have a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about. Because they asked Joss Whedon to come in and basically butcher the shit out of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League probably would have bombed on its own merits, but at least it would have been speaking to its own merits and not being butchered to hell by the hands of the guy who gave us Buffy and Angel.
Okay, I might get some flack for this, and I think I've said it before, but there are some ideas and some scenes that I have seen in the Justice League Justice League that I think are good and could be better worked in and expanded on in some way.
I think the smart move would have literally been put Zack Snyder's Justice League away and just have Joss make his own Justice League. Because another problem of Justice League, and this is completely off the topic of the Thunderbolts, and we'll get back to Thunderbolts as soon as I'm done saying this. But one of the problems of Justice League wasn't even necessarily that they brought somebody else in to cut up somebody else's vision. It's that Joss Whedon. Oh, God damn it, the dog again. Fucking hell. Ragnar, no. Bad dog.
I do also want to point out I do love the original score for Thunderbolts because it's actually quite memorable. Yeah, actually, it's one of the very few scores I remember quite well, or can kind of start to hum it, or it's just in my head. I can't quite hum it because I haven't listened to it enough, but it's still there. Like it's memorable, and it's good. You know, it works.
But the point I was trying to make before the dog invaded my room again was that part of the problem, even irrespective of the fact that they had someone else butcher another person's movie, is just how different Joss and Zack are as creatives to begin with. And that was always probably doomed to fail, even if they'd given Joss more time to do it right.
Moving on.
Yep. Moving on.
Okay.
Back to Thunderbolts.
Yeah. Like I said, music is pretty good. I believe it was Sun Lux who did the score, and it was good actually. It was like very, very interesting because it's very scores.
It fit the kind of movie they were going for, and one of the highest compliments I can pay to this movie. The worst is the worst example of the like street level action movie is probably the Jason Bourne franchise. I cannot stand the Jason Bourne franchise. And this was much more enjoyable than anything Jason Bourne was ever involved in.
two negatives I will say because I feel like we're kind of reaching the end of the review here.
Yeah.
Just we're incredibly disliked about this movie.
Mm.
First one is kind of the obvious one, which is one we brought up when we were watching the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
The asterisk, and this is a spoiler, by the way, in case you haven't watched it. And I actually kind of would recommend you guys watch this movie. It's actually a fun movie to watch. So.
You will have a good time with it. I'm not sure how much staying power it has. That's probably more Brainstormer's department to bring up, because again, emotion shit doesn't work on me usually. But
you're a dead-eyed
you'll have a
motherfucker.
good time while you're watching, and I can at least guarantee you that much.
Yeah, I would say that too. I don't want to like overhype it or anything, obviously, and give us one moment.
You probably could realistically wait until it reaches Disney Plus, but you also probably won't have a bad time if you go to the theater. Although if you're going to the theater, see Sinners at least before you see this movie. Actually, you know what? No. Sinners and this would not make bad double features. I think Sinners is the far, far better movie, but a double feature of Sinners and Thunderbolts sounds like a pretty good time, actually.
All right. So the asterisks, again, spoiler. Why there's an asterisk there is because they get labeled the New Avengers at the end of the movie.
Fuck that.
I
hate.
I kind of understand it, but also
fuck you.
I love the fact that when they announced it, they had a whole other title. They had a whole other different design for the title, right? Like they were supposed to be called the Thunderbolts, and I would have been fine with that.
But they had to try and force people's hand, basically.
It's stupid. Not much. That's about it I have for that complaint.
Not only is it stupid on its own merits, which it is, but it's also calling back to something that Falcon and the Winter Soldier did by changing it to Captain America and the Winter Soldier at the end. And that was a bad idea when they did it too. So fuck you.
I would make the argument that it would have worked if it was Captain America and White Wolf.
I don't think it would. I don't think calling Sam Cap works. Just full stop. I still maintain that the correct maneuver there would be Sam and Bucky working together, buddy cop style, to fill Steve's shoes simultaneously, instead of having one of them take the mantle.
Okay, we're not going to have this discussion yet because we'll be here all night. I don't have the time for that.
Yeah.
Well, mainly, I just think it's stupid to have him still be called the Winter Soldier, given the baggage and trauma that Bucky has from that. And
that name's more marketable. Is the long and short of it. It's bullshit, but the name is more marketable. That's why.
It's fucking stupid. Anyway, the second thing, this is going to be weird. This is going to sound weird. I realize it, and I know a lot of people didn't like the character, hence why they got rid of them in this movie pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish they kept Taskmaster.
She would have at least added something that wasn't just Super Soldier again to the team.
Yeah, and it would have given us a chance to actually explore the character a little more and actually get people to like the character. I realize that's a bit of an ask, but I think it could have worked because people.
Yeah, I
want to
go ahead, rant by all means.
Well, for one thing, a lot of people liked John Walker after this movie. To be fair, I think there were still people that liked John Walker before. I think we're kind of both in the same camp there as well. So I don't think he was like a bad character. It's a whole complicated thing with that character, but
there was just bad writing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's the long and short of it. And it's good to see this character handled by someone who isn't a brain dead fucking Moon.
Right. So I think they could have legitimately. Granted, the idea they had for the character, there was like the original script for the character, was that they would have had amnesia, like kind of a like Alzheimer's or something like that, and he's working with Walker and still try to kill from time to time during the whole movie.
Mm. It also would have been a good. Go ahead.
Funny like once or twice. Film, and again, you could have like rather their character and stuff, and action. I mean, they made ghost powers a lot more interesting and fun, like action scenes in here than in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, and I've been saying this for years. I would rather you completely overhaul a franchise or an aesthetic than stick to an aesthetic that doesn't work. That's why I rate Thor Ragnarok so highly, because rather than stick to the shit that Thor 1 and 2 did that wasn't fucking working and probably never would have worked, they completely overhauled the franchise and basically did a soft reboot. And this kind of felt like a soft reboot, or at least a mulligan of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and She-Hulk and stuff. Which, honestly, if anything in the MCU qualifies for sorry, our bad, we're erasing it mulligan, it's those two fucking messes of stuff.
Anyway, two major gripes of the whole movie, which it's actually rather telling how much I actually really.
Yeah, I have a small gripe that I probably was going to have inevitably regardless. I don't think this was the right movie to introduce Sentry in. I think Sentry should have had his own movie first. I like the idea of using him. I like the idea of using him as the unifying big bad, or at least the Void as the unifying big bad. But I think it would have been more impactful if we had a Sentry movie first.
I still think he did pretty well, actually.
He did do good.
Time.
I just object to the idea of introducing him here. Is the thing.
I'm not going to disagree. I see your point. I think just what we've given and what could possibly happen in the future with the character, I'm fine with it for now. We're all pretty okay, just to avoid, and if you guys want to have this conversation later, please do. It's just for time, again, time purposes. I literally have to be in bed like an hour and a half from now.
Yeah, so that Brainstormer can get sleep.
Well, I have to get up at like around 4:30 actually.
Okay, so the Brainstormer can get sleep and not hate me in the morning, or not hate me as much as he will probably anyway. We should move along relatively quickly.
But that's a pretty good movie. Everything else is actually solid.
Mm-hmm. And my summarization is, it was very competently made. For what it was rather enjoyable. Like I said, it's number 25 out of 50 on my MCU ranking list, and yes, that does include the shows. But yeah, it's better than the majority of phases 4 and 5. I can say that with all confidence. It's not as good as the high points of phases 4 and 5, like Deadpool and Wolverine, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, Agatha, and Werewolf by Night. But it is far better, and I do seriously mean this, far better than the general average of phases 4 and 5, which was more or less shit.
Okay, give me one second to pop out because for some not lasting. So I'm pop real quick and
yeah, he's going to attempt to fix his technical difficulties. It's sort of inevitable when on the show we face technical difficulties, folks. I think while he's rebooting, I think that charge falls far more in line with Love and Thunder. I can see what you mean in the sense that um Love and Thunder tried to continue things from Ragnarok, but it had absolutely no skill in doing so. And I will agree with you that Fat Suit Thor was an absolute travesty, but that's because most things actually in Endgame were travesties. That's why I have such a low opinion of Endgame and such a contrastingly high opinion of Infinity War. Because Endgame failed to cash every single check that was written by Infinity War, and I don't understand I don't understand the blindness people have to Endgame. It was the start of the definition of Marvel fan service being so surface level and nonsensical that it bears no deference to in-universe logic, and that's why I actually think that I still can't call it the Patient Zero because I do think it started the one before that with Captain Marvel, but it is very close to being the Patient Zero of everything people don't like about phases 4 and 5. It's just that people were willing to ignore it because Endgame was supposed to be the end, or at least according to cynical normies, it was supposed to be the end. When everyone who's ever read a comic goes, "What do you mean it's the end? They've only done one storyline. What in the actual fuck?" But in the defense of the normies here, if I had known prior to seeing Endgame that everything after it, including it, were going to be so shit, I would have begged for them to end. Even though, as a comic fan, I know the principle of you don't ask them to end the run after one single storyline. But I don't get to make these decisions. Had I gotten to make these decisions, we would have gotten the fucking Celestial fight in Endgame, and the horde of Celestials coming to judge Earth would have been the big bad of the next phase, rather than the multiverse. And then after the Celestials, we could have done Galactus, and that would have been fine. And maybe after that, they could have done Eternity or the Living Tribunal, and then after that, they could have done Multiverse. But I don't get consulted when they make these decisions. More is the pity, unfortunately. The sad thing is, according to a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, had James Gunn not gotten canceled, they were essentially going to put him in charge of the cosmic side of Marvel, and phases 4 and 5 actually were going to be more space oriented. But we don't get what my friend Nick would call the good ending. We get the slow institutional capture by social justice, and then the consequent anti-meritocracy that happens as a result of that. One moment, I must go let my cat into the room.
It's okay. You come in. There you go. You come in. Okay. Sorry, my cat not only needed to be let in, but also demanded attention as soon as he was let in. And I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. The cat demanded attention, and attention needed to be given. So there.
I am back. Brainstormer is apparently rebooting still. This worries me. Normally, it doesn't take this long. Or he might just be trying to be more thorough. Silver lining, I guess. I hope he's not gone too long, because if he's gone too long, we'll basically have to end the show as soon as he gets back. Which honestly probably wouldn't be a terrible idea, because he does need the sleep. But I don't have the stream controls so as to end it, so we are gonna have to wait until he comes back, so that we can end the stream effectively. And my cat needs tending to again. 1 second. Okay, Brainstormer's back. He can talk while and stuff while I go see to the cat again.
Alright, I'm back. Yeah. Internet crap, all that shit. Alright, let me just set up the next thing, which will be the teaser for Peacemaker Season 2. How you doing, Dragon Troll? Also, yeah, I'm kind of in the same opinion with you about Thor Ragnarok. I saw the comment earlier, but I didn't really have time to say that, so. Okay, so yeah, I've actually tried. Okay, so I've tried to write Thunderbolts in the past. Like, I tried to pre-write it, do a pitch how to do Thunderbolts. Because everything we had seen, like the promotional stuff coming out about it, was not too great, and left me with a sense of dread because I looked up Thunderbolts and I actually really like Thunderbolts. I actually reminds me, I gotta look up about getting maybe like the original Thunderbolts run from the 90s. So that's pretty good from what I remember. Okay. So does the dog know how to get in your room, like open the door or something?
No, I don't normally leave it closed because the cat likes to go in and out.
Okay.
But when I leave the door slightly open like that, the dog likes to come in, get into the cat's litter box, and eat. So, there.
I know it's not your dog, but that dog sounds fucking stupid.
He is. It is definitely an accurate summation.
Like
of
I've
things.
had dogs, and they've never been that stupid. Granted, we've never had cats with a dog when we've had dogs. So, like I've had cats and dogs, but never at the same time, for many reasons. Well, actually, no. Scratch that. There was one time, but it was still a puppy, and then some jackass forgot to close the gate when we let him out, and never saw that puppy again.
When I live alone, I will be sticking to mostly cats. Because I am not a dog person. I tolerate the existence of the dogs we have because they are my brother's dogs, and or my mom's boyfriend's dog. The one that likes to get into the cat box is my mother's boyfriend's dog, and he's staying here because we're trying to get him sent to an animal shelter, but there's a waiting list. So,
Okay, so we have the official teaser for Peacemaker Season 2, which is effectively just a trailer because it's 2 minutes and 23 seconds long.
mm-hmm.
I had watched
So-
this, and I sent it to Dalton, and I got stuff to say. I'm not sure if it is. I'll say it when it needs to be said. So,
Yep.
Oh no, was it? Is that just our colloquial thing for all of DC, or is that just for Batman stuff?
I mean, we can certainly use it for all of DC if you want to. But no.
Well, that's what I'm asking because I'm not sure.
I think we've only used it for Batman stuff usually, but if you want to use the Batnana here, we can use the Batnana here.
Are you sure we
I'm
didn't do
just-
it for the Superman stuff, or did we just say banana?
I think I proposed we say Hostess fruit pies as a reference to the old comic ads, and you suggested apple pie because he is the quintessential all shucks character.
I think we settled on pie, right? As a middle ground.
No, we settled apple pie was the middle ground because I
Oh,
wanted to make the Hostess fruit pie reference to reference the old ads. You suggested apple pie because he's the mom baseball apple pie character, and
Well, so it's a lot.
I
It's also
accepted
a lot
that.
shorter to say.
This is also true.
God, do you remember anything from Peacemaker?
Not much, no. I mean, I'm sure it was decent because James Gunn is good with that kind of character.
I mean, like anything involving food, because I'm trying to.
No, I don't remember anything specific to him.
Okay, let's just do banana, just because I can't think of anything else. So
Banana.
banana.
They're gonna be doing backflips to get you to join.
Welcome, Peacemaker, or do you prefer Chris?
Either's fine.
Can you tell us a little about your skills?
I'm considered the finest marksman in the world.
Mic is off.
Yeah.
I am also proficient in hand-to-hand combat.
How many more of these do we have today?
Is that popcorn still here?
Okay. So this, because it's season 2, and it does pick up some stuff from season 1, which does lead the problem of the continuity of the DCU, obviously, which is complaints we've had from basically the beginning. I don't mind that the actors are here, which makes me think this is a prequel to Superman, I believe.
All I know is that even though it kind of fucks with the universe, James Gunn is keeping everything in his Suicide Squad, which is why we couldn't get a better Amanda Waller and we were stuck with Viola Davis.
You're really not gonna let that go, are you? And
She needs to commit to the character, and committing to that character means 1, putting on weight, 2, that at least some of that weight should be muscle, a la the Kingpin from the Daredevil movie. Like she is Amanda the Waller. She should look like she is about to fuck up your day every time we see her. This is the woman who can stand toe to toe with Batman in a staring contest and not blink first. At least some of the time.
okay,
Not to mention being the mother of
Dalton.
Terry McGinnis in a weird way. Moving on. Yeah, sorry.
I was also gonna. Also, apparently, it seems like Sean Gunn, who's James Gunn's brother, who did the mocap for Rocket, is Kraglin in Guardians of the Galaxy, and Calendar Man in the Suicide Squad.
Yep.
Is playing Maxwell Lord here, I believe.
Okay, so that. Okay, I don't know what they're. Oh God, what are they doing continuity wise? Fuck.
I mean, there was no Maxwell Lord in the DCEU, so.
No, but the issue of recasting the guy who I hope they at least reference it in a joke. Why does Maxwell Lord look like Calendar Man?
To be fair, that was was a cameo and a joke, so.
Right, but it's just like you're already playing on hard mode, James. Stop making it worse for yourself, please.
Still bugs the shit out of me that that Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. That's never not going to bother me.
It's just it's similar to starting with.
Hold on. Can I? Okay. Even if you could stick with the actors you picked for the Lantern series, which I'm fine with because they're both fine actors.
Yeah, they're fine. They
Honestly,
just should be playing different characters.
No, I'm fine with the characters they're playing. Honestly, if nothing else, even if he's played Hal Jordan, I honestly think Nathan Fillion could also play a great Alan Scott as a good way of passing the torch with the characters.
Which would be a nice callback to the golden age, which DC will not
Okay,
do for some reason.
It's not okay. Shh. Shh. Keep the hate boner in your pants. For now, okay?
Phrasing is all I'm gonna say there.
I know what I said. I meant what I said. Shut up.
Go on.
Nah. I don't know. It's weird. Like it's this weird like fucking back and forth with this universe. There are good things in it, and then it does something that makes me question what the fuck are they doing, you know?
It's the same level of bizarrely bad fan service as RDJ playing Doom and being an alternate Tony Stark. It's on that level because the annoying thing is it's a consistent thing. Not only are they starting with Guy Gardner instead of Hal Jordan or Alan Scott or Kyle Rayner or any of the ones that would make sense to start with, no matter which way you're going. They're also doing it with the canon Batman. They're starting with Damian Wayne instead of either Dick or
I swear to God, if you forget Jason Todd,
Tim Drake. There we go. Tim Drake. Starting with Jason wouldn't work because Jason is the edgy contrast Robin.
Okay, see, okay. Hold on. I'm gonna contest that because that was not original. That was not the Jason Todd. He was not always the violent, edgy boy. Now, granted, he had edge to him. I'm not gonna deny that. I feel like there's a big gap there that people kind of forget, and I'm not gonna deny that people say. I think the issue is. The thing I would like to see is Jason's tenure as Robin, which is respected and not constantly trying to force him to be Red Hood instantly, you know?
Regardless of how you feel about Jason, though, starting with him has the same issue of starting with Damian, which is...
Okay, to be fair, I'm sorry.
Dick come first. The only reason I would accept Tim Drake first is because there is a significant portion of the audience who gravitates more to Batman Adventures than to the early days of Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
So you could get away with Tim as the young kid Robin if you introduce Nightwing later on. But even then,
I want to point this out.
Yeah.
DCAU, which is what you're referencing, right?
Yeah.
That Tim Drake was basically a reskinned or named Jason Todd. Think about it.
Even before his Red Hood arc, Jason was a delinquent. He tried to steal the hubs off the Batmobile, damn it.
No, but think about it though. Think about it. Tim Drake.
Tim was never delinquent in that show.
No, will you listen? Okay, just let me explain it. In Batman: The New Adventures of Batman, right? New Batman Adventures.
Yeah.
Okay. Tim Drake, in his origin, was shown to be a street kid with a absentee bum criminal father with connections to one of Batman's rogues. right?
Right. But he
That
still
is not
didn't
him.
act
Oh.
like.
Can I finish? Please.
Yeah, but so far nothing you're saying is convincing me. Go ahead.
That is not Tim Drake in the comics, though.
No, but it's not Jason either. They kind of did their own thing with it.
I'm not convinced, but I'm not going to argue about it because
He's-
I don't have the
he's
time
not-
to.
He's not enough of a little shit, is the thing. If he were actually a reskinned Jason, he would have been a little shit. Because that's who even before the edgy Red Hood arc, he was always a criminally minded, edgy little shit.
Okay.
He was a delinquent. He was the bad boy, which is specific because at the time of publication, it was trying to contrast Jason with Dick. Dick was the good boy who essentially did what he was told for the most part. Jason was the delinquent kid that was meant to be more relatable to the youth.
I'm not going to deny that, but there are other facets of Jason's character that people often forget. That make
True,
him
but you are forgetting a crucial part of his character. That's why I don't.
I wasn't.
I accept that Tim Drake in the DC animated universe is different from Tim Drake from the comics, but you have not done enough work to convince me he's a reskinned Jason Todd.
You know what? We do not have time for this, and nor do I give a shit enough to really justify nor really discuss it at the moment. So I'm going to leave it here, and we can discuss it further at some other point whenever it comes up.
Yep. Banana.
Yeah, let me get to the tab. Oh, my fucking attention. Come on, work, you piece of shit.
Of Bob Gord.
My buzz is getting really big lately, so.
I have a variety of helmets.
This guy sucks.
Excuse me? Am I supposed to be able to hear you guys?
Excuse me? You were talking about your butt and stuff? And also you said that I suck? It is not funny.
That is... Huh. I could get Guy Gardner being an asshole, because that's his whole thing.
Yeah, he is the dickhead Green Lantern.
But Hawkgirl, Maxwell Lord, kind of. It don't really depends on how they write him.
Yeah, it depends on how much like redeeming qualities Max has and how much of a dickhead asshole they want to make him.
Well, this is James Gunn. He often writes assholes, so.
Yeah, it's unsurprising that they turned him into an asshole because and don't get me wrong, with these characters it works. If he does this to Superman, we will riot and there will be things burning, but god damn it.
I don't know. It just like it feels very James Gunn, but then again, that's everything we've seen of him, and I'm not seeing any real distinction or variety.
That being said, it does work with this setup. So
no, it works. I'm just saying, like,
it worries me with regards to Superman. I think we're in agreement on that.
That's not even it. That's not even it for me. I'm gonna be fully honest.
You're worried? Does he not have another gimmick in him? Basically,
yeah, pretty much. Because okay, don't get me wrong. I like Creature Commandos. Well, no, actually,
but it was just Suicide Squad with monsters.
Hold on, let me scratch that. I like the concept of Creature Commandos and the comics or the stories that could be claimed from that. But what was done, I find, yeah, like I said, well, like I've said before, yeah, you know, it's just Suicide Squad or the Suicide Squad with monsters.
Which isn't even necessarily a bad idea, but it's worrisome when it comes to there are characters in the DC universe who you categorically cannot do the likable asshole thing with. And if you try, things will burn very quickly.
It's just like, I get that they made Frank. I'm sorry, slow tangent here, and then we'll move on because I got one thing. I got to make my lunch for work. But like, fuck me, can't they turned Frankenstein? Don't get me wrong. I will be fully preference on this. Like full transparency. While I have not read Frankenstein, like DC's Frankenstein's monster, or well, Frankenstein, or Frank as he likes to call himself. Really at all. I've looked into the character, done research because I like monster superheroes a lot, and while I respect that they went with the more literature version of Frankenstein's monster from the novel for this interpretation of Eric Frankenstein, as they called him, which was like a very petulant man-child.
I don't even know if that qualifies.
I might have phrased that wrong, but my point is, they gave all the negative aspect, like the flaws of that character from the turmoil he suffered. Granted, I don't know how much turmoil, because it does seem like he was named and sort of raised by Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah, I don't know what they were trying to do there. I assume it will come up later because assuming DC does bother with continuity more than it has in the past, we will probably get a season 2 or season 3 of Creature Commandos, in which case we'll probably get more backstory for it.
My point, don't get me. Honestly, it's one of these times that I actually kind of agree with you on the episode length thing with Creature Commandos, because it feels a little bit too short in my opinion.
Yep.
But in the comics, Frankenstein is a warrior poet and a generally good enough hero and a person that, for one thing, there is like a quick montage of pages that I've seen online where he calls on the services of various heroes, one of them being Superman, who wholeheartedly agrees and seems like buddy with Frank.
Which is just adorable.
Right.
As well an interaction between Frankenstein's monster and Superman would be.
Right.
Which now we have to do an homage to that in the Lionheart with Miracle.
Okay. And put a pin in that. But circling back, it's just like this all feels so like with Peacemaker season 1, it was fresh, it was new, it was interesting. Here, I don't know. I'm not really feeling the hype really.
And we both harped on this, but we're gonna harp on it again. It's very worrisome if this is just James Gunn's default mode now. Because there are characters who you categorically cannot do this with. Niet. Nil point. If you try to do the likable asshole misfit thing with certain characters, it will crash and burn before phase 4 or phase 1 is even done, or even the first half of phase 4 that we've gotten announced.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I. Okay. Banana.
I don't get it. We saved the world.
I thought everyone finally treat us like heroes.
I don't need anybody else to just forge my own path.
You're living in the worst level of Grand Theft Auto.
Okay, that one got me.
I'm gonna be honest. I do not like John. The actor's not bad. No, I don't mean Peacemaker. I meant the guy, the
John Cena.
No, John, the tech guy, the guy with the beard.
Oh, okay.
That's his name. Of course, you won't remember. I don't like
It's
that.
been a while. It's been a while since I watched Peacemaker when it first came out. I haven't rewatched it since.
Well, he's also in Creed Commandos, and the guy's, I'm gonna be honest, the guy's a whiny little bitch.
That doesn't surprise me. My only consideration from that at this moment is I hope to God they don't turn Jimmy Olsen into a whiny little bitch too, because this seems to be James's default mode when writing nerds, quote unquote. Because he wrote a love interest for Velma back when he was writing the Scooby Doo movies, and it was this same character, basically.
Well, no, I remember that. It was played by Seth Green, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Monsters Unleashed. He's actually a pretty interesting character. Like, he was tough at times, and wasn't
Right. No,
actually-
I'm not saying he wasn't likable. I'm saying this seems to be one of James's stock character types when writing a nerd, which again I worry for Jimmy, because if they bullshit their way out of doing Jimmy Olsen right again, I'm gonna be pissed.
Anyway,
Banana.
yeah.
From a particularly severe form of toxic masculinity.
Oh, for the love of fuck!
That's the female character who has it.
I'm aware, but even just using the word toxic masculinity gives intersectional feminism too much legitimacy. God damn it!
I don't know.
They might be laughing at it, in which case fine, but I don't know. I've suffered way too much academic woo to not cringe every time I hear that phrase.
No, it's fair. I'm just saying, like, I think it's the joke because it's the female character.
Who is suffering from the alleged woo.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Severe form of toxic masculinity.
What?
Argus has been monitoring Peacemaker ever since Rick Flag Sr. was named director.
Does he know that I am?
Killed his son?
Yeah.
Bring me Peacemaker.
Mexicali, we scanned for any anomalies throughout that house. Pony boy, don't let him out.
Okay. 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 This is such a nitpick, I will admit, but it still bugs me because with the continuity.
By all
of it.
means, Nick, pick your nits, sir.
That sounded better in your head, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah. I like Frank Grillo. Cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing Rick Flag Sr., right?
Mm-hmm.
Makes me wonder what happened to Waller after Creature Commandos, because Creature Commandos is supposed to come after Peacemaker, like season 1.
Right.
But well, this is Rick Flag Sr. kind of didn't do too much in Creature Commandos, which is another thing that I don't like too much. Again, it's that fucking stupid shit. The thing that kind of bugs me is the continuity between I get it's a cartoon, and I get it's a show, but they couldn't have dyed Frank Grillo's hair white or something.
Yeah, it isn't.
Have him wear the yellow, like have him wear the costume too. It's like, hell, even like the set photos for Superman where he appears, it's like why is he not?
Yeah, more to the point. James Gunn literally, and we reacted to this at the time, he literally emphasized the fact that characters from the animation would jump to live action and back as a major selling point of this version of the DC universe. And they can't get a small detail as subtle as his hair color right. Either draw Flag Sr. to look like Frank Grillo, or dye Frank Grillo's hair. One of these two must happen for continuity to be served, and continuity
I
being
just-
served in this way is a thing that James Gunn specifically sold us on.
I think also the issue that kind of bugs me is the costuming, because he's just dressed in regular clothes, which, okay, fine. But why not have him wear the uniform that he was wearing in Creature Commandos? The yellow, like, turtleneck thing and the black combat pants. Or,
In short, if you're going to continuity, then you must continuity. If you're not going to continuity, then, as the old saying goes, the time has come to shit or get off the pot, essentially.
Right, anyway.
Commit to the bit or don't, but pick one, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
About that house. Pony boy, don't let him out of your sight. Titties, I want you to take the front door. Encino man, you take the back door. Got it?
Yeah, but not the fucking names, dude. You can't just call us that.
Where do you think we are? Fucking Berkeley?
Okay, that one gets me. The other one, not too much, but
the
I don't
worst the worst level of Grand Theft Auto got me earlier. So I guess this is your version of that.
I don't know. It's just like, it's the names that get me. And then the response to it, it's just not funny to me. I don't know why.
Well, and okay, that joke actually gets even better in a superhero universe, because if people start randomly calling you a thing, there's a decent chance it might you might end up with it stuck as your superhero moniker. So
To be
that
fair,
actually makes makes it even funnier.
Yeah, because I think these guys are just secret agents, but yeah.
Yeah, so in a superhero universe, yeah, of course they're going to be very pedantic about which names they get called, because if they don't...
Well, I think it was a woman. She got called titties. Yeah. Like... Just like...
True, yeah, that would definitely be the worst possible name for a female character to get stuck with in a superhero universe.
Yeah, anyway, okay, let's keep going, because I really...
Banana, yes.
Dude, you can't
definitely with banana.
Where do you think we are? Fucking Berkeley?
We haven't always been great people. But
we are the 11th Street Kids. No one will ever break us apart.
I don't have anything to say, yes.
Banana. Yep.
Yeah.
Continue.
You ready for the next adventure, pal?
Keep on keeping on.
Who the fuck are you?
Multiverse shenanigans, of course.
Fucking hell. Why? Already?
Well, to be fair, it was introduced in the first season that they had like a pocket dimension armory that his dad built. So
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All right then.
Yeah. Which I think here implies that it's the same armory used by various peacemakers across the multiverse.
Okay, fair enough. I worry about them. I worry about them introducing the multiverse this early, because they haven't even gotten through their equivalent of Phase 1 yet.
Right.
Not even the half of Phase 1 that James Gunn even announced. So it might be risky to introduce it this early, is all I'm saying.
I mean, given the weird continuity, we're already kind of trudging in that territory.
Yeah, and it worries me significantly.
Yeah, so I guess with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
shalom and fuck off, so I can spray Brainstormer with sleep mist like the Green Goblin did to Spidey.